Hello everybody and welcome. My name's Don Arleth and you're watching World News here on TVP World. Poland and France will sign a new historic treaty of friendship and cooperation on Friday, replacing a 1991 accord described by both nations as outdated. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk has met with French President Emmanuel Macron in the French city of Nancy, where the two leaders are set to formalize the pact. The new treaty is expected to include enhanced mutual security guarantees as well as closer defense cooperation. France has already signed similar pacts with Germany, Spain, and Italy. Poland, however, will be the first non-bordering country with France to sign such a high-level agreement. The choice of Nancy is symbolic as the city is the former capital of the Duchy of Lorraine, ruled by exiled Polish King Stanisław Leszczyński from 1736 to 1766. The date is not accidental either, as May 9th marks Europe Day, a celebration of peace and unity. Russia's Victory Day parade in Moscow to mark the end of World War II has been attended to by a handful of foreign dignitaries. Vladimir Putin stood beside Chinese President Xi Jinping and around 24 other foreign leaders as they took part in a wreath-laying ceremony at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier near the Kremlin walls. The officials included two European leaders, Serbian President Alexander Vučić and Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico. Other leaders who attended include Brazil's Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, the leaders of Belarus, Venezuela, Cuba, and Vietnam. The parade also featured Chinese troops, and Putin was also shown embracing officials from North Korea. The Security Service of Ukraine has uncovered a spy network apparently operated by the Hungarian state to obtain intelligence about Ukraine's defenses.
In a statement on Friday, the Ukrainian Security Service said it had detained two operatives working for Hungarian military intelligence. This is the first time ever that a Hungarian spy network had been found to be working against Ukraine's national interests, the statement added. Budapest has not responded to a request for comment.
George Simeon, who came out on top in the first round of Romania's presidential election, has demanded that Kyiv repay Bucharest for the military and humanitarian support it has received, according to Romanian media.
Simeon was referring to the Patriot air defence system previously supplied to Ukraine by former Romanian President Klaus Iohannis, calling it a donation from Romania's pockets. Simeon is the leader of the far-right ARU party and the current frontrunner in the presidential race, promising to halt any future aid to Ukraine if elected. He claims that he will promote neutrality and avoid any escalation with Russia, while aligning with the policy of US President Donald Trump on the ongoing conflict in Ukraine with Russia. Simeon won the first round of the presidential election with nearly 40% of the vote on May 4th. The runoff is set to take place on May 18th.
Lithuania's President Gitanas Nausėda says that the threat posed by Russia has prompted his country to significantly boost military spending. Ahead of defense talks in Oslo, Nausėda said that Vilnius will increase military expenditure to above 5% of GDP until the end of the decade.
Of course, it's very important to support Ukraine because the fate of Ukraine actually is the fate of our own security. And if Putin will succeed in Ukraine, next Monday he will stand at our door. So this is the reason why my country, Lithuania, is taking additional efforts to increase the defense spending. And this year our defense spending will be 4% of GDP. Next year it will be increased up to 5.25%, and we will keep the defense spending in the range between 5 and 6%, at least until 2030. This is why this is understandable, because we realize that our security is very important and we are very vulnerable being and having common border with two adversary states, Belarus and Russian Federation.
There are a lot of Western components in these Iranian Shaheds, Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski pointed out upon seeing fragments of destroyed unmanned aerial vehicles used by Russia against Ukraine. He also praised the turnout of EU foreign ministers on their joint visit to the Ukrainian city of Lviv and called for more sanctions against Russia.
The future of Ukraine is in the European Union, not in the Commonwealth of so-called independent states. I am very pleased with the turnout of EU foreign ministers. British officials are also here. Yesterday we had the informal Gymnich meeting in Warsaw. Today we are in Lviv. Just a moment ago I saw the display of Russian equipment shot down by Ukraine. Unfortunately, we find that there are a lot of Western components in these Iranian Shahed drones and other bombs that Russia is sending against what it's calling its Ukrainian brethren, so our sanctions need to be tightened.
Muldova, which hopes to join the European Union by 2030, is hosting a Europe Day in Chisinau on Friday. However, another event is being held in the country's capital, as well as some Moldovans are participating in the Russian-style Victory Day march. Our Balkan correspondent Paweł Trzaskowski is there.
As Victory Day parade is being held in Moscow today, a Victory Day march was organized in Chisinau, the capital of Moldova, on the same day. It was not an official state celebration. However, Moldovan authorities were here in the early morning hours at the Eternal Memory Complex to commemorate those who died in the Second World War. And this march, this event symbolizes the divisions in the Moldovan society today, the divisions between Russia and Europe.
For me, this is Victory Day. I came for my grandfather who liberated Moldova from fascist occupation. My grandfather went through the whole journey, from the Winter War to this one. I remember, my children will remember, and my grandchildren will remember. I guarantee you this. This is the biggest holiday in our family because my uncle burned alive in a tank near Leningrad. My uncle liberated Berlin as a young man. My mother received a medal for labor valor from 1941-45. This is a huge, huge holiday.
We celebrate, we honor. We are proud of our ancestors who gave us a peaceful sky above our heads. We honor the memory of our ancestors. We honor the memory of our relatives, all those who liberated these lands from invaders. Today, there is no other holiday. Today is Victory Day, the 80th anniversary.
Until 1991, Moldova used to be a Soviet socialist republic, and now this little country with a little over 2 million citizens has two separatist pro-Russian republics of Gagauzia and Transnistria, and the divisions between Russia and Europe are visible not only on the days like today, but also during the elections in the country. In the previous presidential elections from 2024, pro-European candidate Maia Sandu narrowly defeated a pro-Russian opponent Alexander Stoyanoglu, and this pro-Russian sentiment is attributed on one hand to the Soviet past of Moldova, but on the other to Russian propaganda and to Russian malign interference in the region. This is why today also a second celebration is being held, a European Day that is held in the city centre. It is attended this year by Marta Kos, European Commissioner for Enlargement, a show of support from the European Union for the country that hopes to join the bloc by 2030. From Chisinau, Moldova, for TVP World, I'm Paweł Trzaskowski.
German Chancellor Friedrich Mertz used his first visit to Brussels to reiterate Berlin's support for Ukraine against Russia's relentless invasion. The recently minted Bundeskanzler said that if necessary, he would scale up support for the war-torn country, but remains staunchly opposed to joint EU debt to finance defense. More from our EU correspondent Angela Skujins in Brussels.
strengthening Europe's borders, bolstering Europe's military capacity and supporting Ukraine sat at the core of various speeches delivered by German Chancellor Friedrich Mertz on his first trip to the Belgian capital since taking office earlier this week. Now, he gave press conferences alongside European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen as well as European Council President Antonio Costa, where he reiterated that Europe must stand on its own 2 feet when securing its own defensive capabilities. However, he cautioned that this path should not be paved through common defence spending. Let's take a listen to what that German leader had to say regarding support for Ukraine on a day commemorating the 75th anniversary of the founding of the European Union.
We will, in close solidarity with our European partners, continue to support Ukraine. We will support them so they can continue to effectively defend themselves, and we stand ready, if necessary, to also exert further pressure on Russia. We call on Russia to now finally embark on the path for genuine peace negotiations. If this does not happen, we will not hesitate, together with our European partners and the United States of America, to further increase sanctions pressure.
Now, the Christian Democratic Party Union leader also reiterated that only days after taking office, he visited the capitals of both Poland and France to shore up relations with some of Europe's largest power brokers. He also defended a recent decision coming out of Berlin, his interior ministry, to ramp up border controls and potentially push back asylum seekers. On the topic of migration, he raised Poland's borders, once again stating that these are not only concerned to that Central European country, but should be a matter for all member states to be cognizant of. He also has another press conference scheduled with that NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, where we're expecting more commentary regarding Germany's intent to scale up defence spending. So we'll have to wait and see what comes out of that commentary. Angela Scoogens from Brussels for TVP World.
Pope Leo XIV has delivered a message of unity and inclusion during his very first Mass as pontiff. Our correspondent Alex Cadier is in the Vatican and has this next report.
Well, we had the first sense of what kind of papacy we can expect from Leo XIV in his first Mass given here in the Vatican. In his homily, he emphasized that the importance of a joyful faith in Christ, reminding the cardinals that without faith, that life has no meaning. A multilingual Mass by the multilingual Pope in English, Italian and Spanish, reflecting his years spent as a missionary in Peru. So an interesting change in pace, certainly this an open-minded, globally minded Pope who many priests I've been speaking to behind the scenes, American priests, suggest may have been selected as a spiritual and moral counterweight to the US president. He will provide guidance to American Catholics who are perhaps a little skeptical of the direction of travel of President Trump. But that is something to look out for in the coming weeks. In the coming hours here at the Vatican is a moment of reflection, a moment of prayer, a moment of peaceful recognition of this new Pope, the direction of which he will set, similar, we assume, to Pope Francis, progressive, reforming, trying to modernize the Catholic Church in the image of so many people around the world who would like to see a more modern Pope. We've been speaking to Americans here who are relieved by the choice, honored, as Donald Trump said, to have the first American pontiff, but certainly excited to see what changes he can bring to the Roman Catholic Church. But as I said, for now, a moment of reflection here in the Vatican and a moment of prayer. In the Vatican, I'm Alex Cadier for TVP World.
The United States is planning on bringing the first group of white South Africans it is classified as refugees to the United States early next week. This is according to the New York Times.
In an article published on Friday, the New York Times said the Trump administration is set to send officials to the Washington Dulles International Airport in Virginia to welcome the white South Africans whose arrival was initially set for Monday, May 5th. The plans follow an executive order signed by President Trump on February 7th, which called for the US to resettle Afrikaner refugees. According to the directive, Afrikaners, who are descendants of mostly Dutch early settlers, were, quote, victims of unjust racial discrimination.
Executive orders for your attention today, sir.
This midday report. Thank you very much for joining us. Have a wonderful afternoon and stay tuned for more here on TV.